I never imagined that the happiest day of my life would also be the day I learned what it truly meant to fight for something. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and this is the story of how a simple hospital visit turned into a nightmare that would unravel secrets I never knew existed. Secrets that would challenge everything I thought I knew about love, family, and the very definition of motherhood. It started on a Tuesday morning in late September, one of those perfect autumn days in Portland, when the air smells like rain and fallen leaves, and the world seems wrapped in a blanket of amber light. I was 32 years old, working as a graphic designer from home, living what I thought was a predictable, comfortable life with my husband, Michael. We'd been married for 7 years, and after 4 years of fertility treatments, failed IVF attempts, and more tears than I care to remember, we'd finally decided to pursue adoption. The process had been grueling. Background checks, home visits, endless paperwork, psychological evaluations that made me question my own sanity. But 6 months ago, we'd received the call that changed everything. A birth mother had chosen us. Her name was Rebecca. She was 19 years old, and she wanted an open adoption. We met her twice before the baby was born. A shy girl with kind eyes who worked at a coffee shop and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. She told us she wasn't ready to be a mother, that she wanted her son to have the life she couldn't give him. When Ethan was born on September 15th, Michael and I were in the delivery room. I cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down my face. Rebecca held him for 20 minutes, whispered something in his ear that I'll never know, kissed his forehead, and then handed him to me. "Take care of my baby," she said, and I promised her I would. I promised with every fiber of my being. The adoption wasn't finalized yet. There was a mandatory waiting period, more paperwork, court dates. But Ethan came home with us. He was perfect. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a head full of dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right into your soul. Michael and I spent those first 2 weeks in a sleep-deprived haze of diaper changes and midnight feedings, marveling at every tiny yawn, every little sound he made. I had never known it was possible to love someone so completely, so immediately. Then came that Tuesday morning. Ethan had been fussy all night, running a slight fever. By dawn, his temperature had climbed to 101.5, and he was refusing to eat. I called the pediatrician's office the moment they opened, and they told me to bring him in immediately. Michael was out of town for work, some conference in Chicago, so I bundled Ethan into his car seat alone, my hands trembling as I drove to the medical center. Dr. Patterson examined him quickly, her face growing serious. "I think it might be RSV," she said. "Respiratory syncytial virus. It's common in infants, but at his age, we need to be careful. I want to admit him to the children's hospital for observation." My heart dropped into my stomach, but I nodded, trying to stay calm. This was just a precaution, I told myself. Babies got sick all the time. Everything would be fine. An hour later, I was sitting in a sterile hospital room on the pediatric floor, watching nurses hook my 2-week-old son up to monitors that beeped and flashed with numbers I didn't understand. They put in an IV, my brave little boy barely cried, and started him on fluids. A respiratory therapist came in to set up a nebulizer treatment. Everyone was kind, professional, reassuring. I called Michael, and he immediately booked a flight home. That's when the nurse came in. Her name was Linda, according to her badge, and she had the tired eyes of someone who'd worked too many double shifts. She was carrying a clipboard and wore an expression I couldn't quite read, somewhere between sympathetic and uncomfortable. "Mrs. Mitchell?" she said, hovering near the doorway. "Yes?" I looked up from where I'd been stroking Ethan's tiny hand. "I need to talk to you about insurance verification." She glanced down at her clipboard, then back at me. "There seems to be an issue with coverage." I felt my chest tighten. "What kind of issue?" "We have excellent insurance through my husband's company. Family coverage." Linda shifted her weight from one foot to the other. "I understand, but the system is showing that Ethan isn't covered under your policy. When I called to verify, they said..." She paused, clearly uncomfortable. "They said your insurance doesn't cover him." The words hit me like a physical blow. "That's impossible. We added him to our policy the day he was born. I have the confirmation email on my phone." "I believe you," Linda said quickly. "But according to their records, he's not showing up as a dependent. Without coverage, the hospital admission alone will cost thousands of dollars, not including medications, tests, or doctor's fees. My mind raced. This had to be a clerical error, some bureaucratic mix-up that could be sorted out with a phone call. Can you give me a number? I'll call them right now and straighten this out. Linda provided the number, and I immediately dialed, pacing the small hospital room while Ethan slept fitfully in his crib. After navigating through an automated system that seemed designed to prevent human contact, I finally reached a representative named Derek. "I'm calling about my son, Ethan Mitchell," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He was just admitted to the hospital, and there seems to be an issue with his coverage." I could hear Derek typing. "Date of birth? September 15th, 2024, more typing." A long pause. "I'm showing here that you attempted to add a dependent on September 16th, but the claim was denied." Denied? Why would it be denied? It says here, more typing. "The reason for denial is that genetic relationship could not be verified." I felt the world tilt beneath me. Genetic relationship? What does that even mean? Derek's voice took on that carefully neutral tone that customer service representatives use when delivering bad news. "Your insurance policy includes a clause requiring genetic testing for newborns added to the policy. It's relatively new, implemented 6 months ago to prevent fraud. When the hospital submitted the routine newborn screening results, the genetic markers didn't match either policyholder." "That's because he's adopted," I said, my voice rising. "We're in the process of finalizing the adoption. That doesn't mean he shouldn't be covered." "I understand your frustration, ma'am, but the policy specifically covers biological children and legally finalized adopted children. Since the adoption isn't complete, and there's no genetic relationship, coverage can't be extended at this time." I wanted to scream. I wanted to reach through the phone and shake this person until they understood that the tiny baby fighting an infection in the hospital bed behind me was my son. Paperwork be damned. Instead, I forced myself to speak calmly. "So what am I supposed to do? Let my baby go without treatment because some insurance policy has a technicality?" "You can file an appeal," Derek offered. "Or pay out of pocket and seek reimbursement once the adoption is finalized." "An appeal takes weeks. He needs treatment now." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Mitchell. Those are your options." I hung up, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Linda was still standing in the doorway, her expression sympathetic. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "If it helps, we can set up a payment plan, and Ethan will receive care regardless. We don't turn away sick children, but you will be responsible for the bills." I nodded numbly, not trusting myself to speak. After Linda left, I sank into the uncomfortable chair beside Ethan's crib and let myself cry for exactly 3 minutes. Then I wiped my eyes, took a deep breath, and started making calls. First to Michael, who was as outraged as I was and promised to call the insurance company himself. Then to our lawyer, who handled the adoption paperwork. She was sympathetic, but confirmed that until the adoption was finalized, we were in a legal gray area. The next 72 hours were a blur of worry and bureaucracy. Ethan's condition worsened before it improved. His oxygen levels dropped, and they had to put him on supplemental oxygen. I barely left his side, surviving on hospital cafeteria coffee and granola bars. Michael made it home and joined me in my vigil, both of us taking turns holding Ethan when the nurses said it was okay, talking to him, singing to him, willing him to get better. The bills started arriving almost immediately. Each test, each dose of medication, each hour of nursing care, it all added up. By the 3rd day, we were looking at over $30,000 in medical expenses, and Ethan was still sick. Our savings account, which we'd carefully built up for home renovations, was being drained with terrifying speed. But something else was happening too, something I didn't recognize at first. On the 2nd day of Ethan's hospitalization, a woman from the hospital's billing department came to discuss payment options. She was professional but firm, and she asked for copies of all our insurance documentation. I provided everything I had, our policy information, the confirmation email showing we'd added Ethan as a dependent, everything. She left with a folder full of papers, and I didn't think much of it until later that evening when she returned with a strange expression on her face. "Mrs. Mitchell, I need to ask you something," she said. "The genetic screening results that the insurance company referenced. Do you have a copy of those?" "No," I said, confused. I didn't even know they did genetic screening. I thought that was just for things like metabolic disorders. It is, she said carefully. But the results get uploaded to a database that insurance companies can access. Your insurance company mentioned that the genetic markers didn't match either you or your husband. I'm not supposed to access these records, but... She lowered her voice. Something seemed off, so I looked. Mrs. Mitchell, according to the genetic screening, Ethan's DNA shows markers that are consistent with yours. I stared at her. That's not possible. He's adopted. We were in the delivery room. But he's not biologically mine. I'm just telling you what the test results show, she said quietly. The markers indicate a parent-child relationship with you specifically. Not your husband, just you. After she left, I sat in stunned silence. Michael had gone to the hotel to shower and change clothes, so I was alone with Ethan and this impossible information. There had to be a mistake. Genetic tests weren't infallible. Maybe the samples got mixed up, or the database was corrupted. Or this was all just part of the insurance company's scheme to deny coverage. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew rapidly in the exhausted, anxious soil of my mind. I thought about Rebecca, the birth mother. She'd seemed so young, so certain about her decision to give up her baby. We'd met her through an adoption agency, gone through all the proper channels. Everything had been legitimate and legal, but I realized I didn't actually know much about Rebecca at all. Where she'd come from, who her family was, what her story really was. The agency had given us the basics. She was 19, worked at a coffee shop, had gotten pregnant by a boyfriend who was no longer in the picture. But what if there was more? What if there was something we didn't know? I pulled out my phone and opened my email, searching for the agency's contact information. It was 9 o'clock at night, but I sent an email anyway, asking if I could speak with our caseworker about Rebecca's background information. Then I sat back and waited, my mind spinning with possibilities that seemed too absurd to be real. Ethan stirred in his crib, and I reached down to touch his hand. He wrapped his tiny fingers around one of mine, and my heart clenched. It didn't matter what any test said. This was my son. I had changed his diapers, soothed his cries, fed him in the middle of the night. Biology was just chemistry and chance. Love was what made a family. But still, the question nagged at me. How could a genetic test show a parent-child relationship that didn't exist? Michael returned around 10, looking more exhausted than I'd ever seen him. We sat together in the darkened hospital room, listening to the rhythmic beep of Ethan's monitors, and I told him what the billing woman had said. It's a mistake, he said immediately. Has to be. Labs mix up samples all the time. That's what I thought, I said. But what if it's not? What if there's something we don't know about Rebecca? Michael looked at me for a long moment. Sarah, what are you suggesting? I didn't know how to put it into words without sounding crazy. I don't know. I need to understand what's happening. The insurance company says the DNA doesn't match. The hospital says it does match me, but not you. None of it makes sense. We're not getting the runaround from some insurance company over a lab error, Michael said firmly. Tomorrow I'm going to call and demand they run another test. A proper one, from a reliable lab. But before we could do anything, my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from our caseworker at the adoption agency, and the message was brief. Call me tomorrow morning. It's important. There's something we need to discuss about Rebecca. I barely slept that night, dozing fitfully in the chair beside Ethan's crib. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind conjured wild theories and impossible scenarios. By the time dawn broke, painting the hospital room in shades of gray and pale blue, I was exhausted and wired at the same time. Michael went to get coffee, and I called the adoption agency the moment their office opened. Our caseworker, Jennifer, answered on the second ring. Sarah, she said, and there was something in her voice that made my stomach drop. Thank you for calling. I need to tell you something, and I'm not sure how to do this gently, so I'm just going to say it. Rebecca didn't give us completely accurate information about herself. What do you mean? Jennifer sighed. After you emailed last night, I went back through our files. Something about your question triggered a memory. There was a note from one of our intake counselors that seemed odd at the time, but didn't raise any red flags. Rebecca had mentioned having a sister she'd lost contact with years ago. The counselor noted it because Rebecca seemed emotional about it, but it wasn't relevant to the adoption process, so we didn't pursue it. I don't understand what this has to do with anything, I said. I looked into Rebecca's background more thoroughly this morning. Jennifer continued. Sarah, Rebecca's biological mother gave up 2 daughters for adoption. Rebecca was one of them. She was adopted by a family in Seattle when she was 3 years old, but there was another daughter, older by 10 years, who was also placed for adoption. That adoption was closed, and the records are sealed, but she paused. The timing and location match your adoption records. The hospital room seemed to spin. Are you saying? I'm saying Rebecca might be your biological sister. Half-sister, technically. You share a biological mother. The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My adoption. I'd known I was adopted since I was 5 years old. My parents had always been open about it. They'd adopted me when I was 2, after my birth mother, a woman named Christine who struggled with addiction, had her parental rights terminated. I'd never tried to find my birth family, never felt the need. My adoptive parents were my real parents in every way that mattered, but this changed everything. That would mean, I said slowly, working through the implications, that Ethan is my biological nephew. Yes, Jennifer said quietly, which would explain the genetic markers. You'd share approximately 25% of your DNA with a biological nephew. I thought about the genetic screening, about the insurance company's confusion, about the billing woman's surprise. A parent-child relationship typically meant sharing 50% of DNA, but other close relationships, like aunt and nephew, could show up as significant matches, especially in the simplified screening test used for newborns. Does Rebecca know? I asked. Does she know we're related? I don't know, Jennifer admitted. She never mentioned recognizing your name or anything about your background. It's possible she doesn't know. Her adoption records might not have included information about her biological mother's other children. After I hung up with Jennifer, I sat in stunned silence, trying to process this information. Michael returned with coffee and pastries, took one look at my face, and immediately asked what was wrong. I told him everything, watching his expression shift from confusion to disbelief to wonder. So Ethan is actually your family, he said. Your blood family. Biologically, yes, I said. But I didn't know. Rebecca didn't know. We met completely by chance, through the adoption agency. What are the odds? In a city the size of Portland? Michael shook his head. Pretty astronomical. I looked at Ethan, sleeping peacefully now, his tiny chest rising and falling beneath the hospital blanket. He had Rebecca's nose, I realized. And maybe he had my mother's chin. Our mother's chin. Christine's chin. A woman I'd never met, never thought about much, suddenly connected to me through this tiny, perfect baby. What do we do? I asked Michael. We finish what we started, he said firmly. We adopt him. He's our son, Sarah. This doesn't change that. But what about the insurance? If he's my biological nephew, then we get a proper DNA test done, Michael interrupted. We prove the relationship, we appeal the insurance company's decision, and we get his medical bills covered. But more importantly, we tell Rebecca she deserves to know. He was right, of course. But the thought of having that conversation terrified me. How do you tell someone that the adoptive family she chose for her baby is actually her own biological family? People she'd never known existed. Ethan's condition continued to improve over the next day. His fever broke, his oxygen levels stabilized, and the doctor started talking about discharge. We arranged for a DNA test through a certified laboratory, not just a screening, but a comprehensive paternity test that would clearly establish the genetic relationship between Ethan and me. Well, we waited for the results. I reached out to Rebecca through the adoption agency. We'd been doing monthly updates, sending her photos and letters, maintaining the open adoption we'd agreed to. But this time I asked if we could meet in person. I said there was something important we needed to discuss. She agreed, and we met at a quiet coffee shop on a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks after Ethan had been discharged from the hospital. Rebecca looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from grief and difficult decisions. She asked about Ethan immediately, and I showed her photos on my phone, assuring her he was healthy and happy. Then I told her about the insurance issue, about the genetic screening, about what the adoption agency had discovered. I watched her face as I spoke, seeing confusion give way to shock, then disbelief. then something that looked like wonder. "We're sisters?" she whispered. "Like actual biological sisters?" "Half-sisters," I clarified. "We share a biological mother, Christine." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "I've always wondered about her, about my biological family. The adoption agency told me there might be siblings, but the records were sealed. I tried to search a few years ago, but couldn't find anything." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "And then I chose you. Out of all the families the agency showed me, I chose you. That can't be a coincidence." "I don't think it is," I said softly. I think maybe we recognize something in each other, some connection we couldn't name." We talked for over 2 hours that day, piecing together the fragments of our shared history. Rebecca's adoptive parents had told her about Christine, about the addiction, the instability, the heartbreaking decision to give up her children so they could have better lives. My story was similar. 2 daughters born 10 years apart to the same troubled woman, both placed for adoption, both raised by loving families who gave them the stability their birth mother couldn't provide. And now, through an impossible series of coincidences and choices, we'd found each other again. More than that, we'd become family in a way that transcended biology and paperwork. "Does this change anything?" Rebecca asked quietly. "About the adoption?" "No," I said firmly. "If anything, it makes it more right. Ethan belongs with us, with his family, his whole family, including you." The DNA test results came back 3 weeks later, confirming what we already knew. Ethan and I shared 26% of our DNA, slightly higher than the typical aunt-nephew relationship, but clearly establishing a close familial connection. Armed with this evidence, Michael contacted our insurance company and filed a formal appeal. The response took another 2 weeks, but eventually, they reversed their decision. The genetic relationship, while not parent-child, was close enough to qualify for dependent coverage under the family policy. They agreed to retroactively cover Ethan's hospital stay, reimbursing us for the thousands of dollars we'd already paid. But the real victory wasn't financial. The real victory was the family we'd built, one that defied easy definition, but was held together by something stronger than blood or law. The adoption was finalized on a cold December morning, in a courthouse that smelled like old wood and lemon polish. Rebecca was there, sitting in the back row, crying happy tears as the judge declared Ethan officially and legally our son. Afterward, we all went to lunch. Michael and me, Rebecca, my parents, Michael's parents. 3 generations, and one tiny baby, who had somehow managed to knit together the fractured pieces of a family that had been broken apart decades ago. Rebecca continued to be part of Ethan's life, just as we'd planned. She visited once a month, bringing small gifts and spending hours playing with him, watching him grow. But our relationship had evolved too. We were no longer just the adoptive parents and the birth mother. We were sisters, learning to navigate this unexpected connection, sharing stories about our childhoods, finding similarities and differences, building something new. On Ethan's first birthday, we had a party in our backyard. The September weather was perfect. Warm sun, cool breeze, the smell of barbecue and birthday cake in the air. Ethan, wearing a tiny bow tie that he kept trying to pull off, smashed his cake with gleeful abandon while surrounded by people who loved him. I stood on the porch, watching him, and thought about that terrible day in the hospital, when the nurse had told me his insurance didn't cover him, how it had seemed like a nightmare, a bureaucratic impossibility that threatened everything. But it had led to this, to understanding, to connection, to a family that was richer and more complex than I'd ever imagined. Michael came up beside me, slipping his arm around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky we are," I said. "How the worst moment can lead to the best discovery." Rebecca joined us, holding a glass of lemonade, and we stood together watching Ethan, my son, her son, our son, laughing as my mother helped him open presents. "I have something to tell you," Rebecca said quietly. "I've been thinking about it for a while, and I wanted to wait for the right moment." She paused, looking nervous. "I applied to veterinary school. I start in January." "Rebecca, that's incredible." I hugged her, feeling genuinely proud. "It's because of you," she said. "Both of you. Seeing how hard you fought for Ethan, How you didn't give up even when everything seemed impossible. It made me realize I shouldn't give up on my dreams either. I'm going to do this. I'm going to become a veterinarian, and someday, when Ethan is old enough to understand, I want to tell him that his parents inspired me to be better. He's going to be so proud of his Aunt Rebecca, Michael said, and I saw tears in Rebecca's eyes. Later that evening, after all the guests had left and Ethan was finally asleep, Michael and I cleaned up the backyard in comfortable silence. We'd done the hard work of building a family, the sleepless nights, the worry, the fighting with insurance companies and navigating legal systems. But we'd also experienced the joy that comes from choosing love over biology, from opening our hearts wide enough to encompass not just the child we'd wanted, but the entire complex web of relationships that came with him. Do you ever wonder, Michael asked, tying up a garbage bag full of wrapping paper and paper plates, what would have happened if the insurance had just covered him? If we'd never looked into the genetic testing, we might never have known about Rebecca, I admitted. Never discovered the connection. Ethan would still be our son, but we'd have missed out on so much. The universe works in mysterious ways, Michael said, pulling me close. Or maybe, I countered. It's just that sometimes the obstacles we face aren't really obstacles at all. They're redirections, pushing us toward something we didn't know we needed. I think about that conversation often now, as I watch Ethan grow. He's 3 years old now, a whirlwind of energy and curiosity, with Rebecca's dark eyes, and what I'm told is Christine's stubborn streak. He calls Rebecca Auntie Becca and lights up every time she visits. He doesn't know the complicated story of his birth yet. He's too young to understand. But someday we'll tell him. We'll explain about the adoption, about the insurance mix-up that led to genetic testing, about the impossible discovery that his Auntie Becca is actually Mommy's sister, making him part of a family story that's as unconventional as it is beautiful. We'll tell him about the nurse who said he wasn't covered, and how that moment of crisis became a moment of revelation. We'll teach him that family isn't just about DNA or legal documents. It's about the people who show up, who fight for you, who choose to love you day after day. And we'll tell him about his grandmother Christine, the woman none of us really knew but who somehow managed to bring us all together across decades and circumstances. Her struggles led to 2 adoptions, but those adoptions eventually led to a reunion that healed wounds no one even knew existed. Rebecca graduated from veterinary school last spring. She's working at a small animal clinic in Portland, living her dream. She's dating someone now, a kind man who treats her well and has already met Ethan. She talks sometimes about having children of her own someday, and when she does, those children will be Ethan's cousins. The family tree keeps growing, branches extending in unexpected directions. My parents, Ethan's grandparents, have embraced Rebecca as the daughter they never had. They include her in holiday gatherings, ask about her life, treat her as part of the family. Michael's parents did the same. What started as an adoption arrangement has blossomed into something much more organic and beautiful. Sometimes I think about that day in the hospital, the panic I felt when Linda told me Ethan wasn't covered. I remember the fear, the anger, the sense of injustice, but I'm grateful for it now. Grateful for the insurance company's suspicious policy, for the genetic screening I didn't know existed, for the bureaucratic mix-up that forced us to dig deeper and discover the truth. Because the truth gave us more than we ever expected. It gave us a sister, an aunt, a richer understanding of where we came from and who we are. It turned our little family of 3 into something bigger, more complex, more resilient. Ethan is starting preschool next month. He's excited, already picking out his backpack and talking about making new friends. He's confident, secure in the knowledge that he's loved beyond measure by a whole village of people. He doesn't see anything unusual about having 2 sets of grandparents, or about Auntie Becca being at every birthday and holiday. To him, this is just what family looks like. And maybe that's the most important lesson in all of this. Family looks different for everyone. It's not defined by biology alone, or by legal documents alone, or by any single factor. It's defined by choice, by commitment, by showing up even when things are hard. It's defined by the people who hold your hand in hospital rooms at 3 a.m, who celebrate your victories and mourn your losses, who choose you over and over again. The nurse was right, in a way. Ethan wasn't covered, not by the narrow definitions the insurance company wanted to use. not by the simple categories of biology or legal status, but he was covered in every way that truly mattered. He was covered by love, by family, by a network of people who would move heaven and earth to keep him safe. And that DNA test? It didn't tell us who Ethan's mother was. We already knew that. I was his mother. I am his mother. From the moment I held him in that delivery room and promised to take care of him. What it told us was something even more profound. That the families we choose and the families we're born into sometimes aren't separate things at all. Sometimes they're the same people, finding their way back to each other through impossible odds and unlikely circumstances. Sometimes a closed door isn't an ending. Sometimes it's just the universe's way of saying, look closer, there's something here you need to see. So if you're watching this story unfold, if you followed me through the panic and the discovery and the joy, I want you to know something. Whatever challenges you're facing right now, whatever obstacles seem insurmountable, whatever doors appear to be closed, look closer. The answer might not be what you expect. The path forward might be completely different from what you imagined, but it might also be exactly what you needed, even if you didn't know it yet. Family is complicated. Love is messy. But both are worth fighting for. Worth the sleepless nights and the worried phone calls and the mountains of paperwork. Because at the end of the day, when you're sitting on your back porch watching your child play, surrounded by the people who chose to love you and be loved by you, you'll realize that every obstacle along the way was just preparing you for this moment. The moment when everything finally makes sense. The moment when you understand that you were exactly where you needed to be all along. If this story touched you, if you've experienced something similar, or if you're in the middle of your own journey to build a family, I'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you want to follow along as Ethan grows and our family continues to evolve, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes next. Because this story, it's just the beginning. Thank you for letting me share our journey with you. Thank you for being part of our extended family, even if we've never met. And thank you for understanding that sometimes the best stories don't have simple answers. They have love, they have persistence, and they have endings that surprise us all. The nurse said his insurance didn't cover him, but love did, family did, and in the end, that's the only coverage that really matters.